Hello and welcome to the Rethinking Cyber podcast with me, your host, Rebecca McLaughlin-Eastham, brought to you in association with the Global Cybersecurity Forum. In this third series, you'll hear my frank and thought-provoking conversations about the challenges and opportunities shaping our cyber future, as I sit down with some of the world's greatest minds, eminent academics, captains of the private sector and policymakers. Today, my special guest is Ambassador Shyam Saran, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs for India, the former Special Envoy for Nuclear Affairs, and the Climate Change President of the India International Centre. He also served as Chairman of the National Security Advisory Board under the National Security Council, and he has been India's ambassador to Myanmar, Indonesia and Nepal, as well as the High Commissioner to Mauritius. His Excellency was awarded his country's third highest national honour, the Padma Bhushan, by the President of India for his contribution to civil service, and he has authored the book How India Sees the World. Ambassador, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you for talking to me today.
Thank you very much for having me on this podcast, and I very much look forward to our conversation.
Reflecting on the annual meeting of GCF 2024, how did you find it on the ground? What was your experience?
It's always been a learning experience, and each time that I have come to the forum, I have had some new things to learn, to be a little scared about the bigger challenges that we are facing, but also encouraged by the fact that there are great minds who are looking out for the ways in which we can meet these challenges. So yes, it has been a great experience.
You mentioned the bigger challenges that we're facing. What might some of those be, the ones that concern you the most?
You know, I have been in my diplomatic career very much focused on nuclear issues. So I've been a negotiator on nuclear affairs. The Indo-US nuclear deal was one of the diplomatic negotiations I was involved in. Later, I was dealing with climate change as India's chief negotiator on climate change. So both of these, as you can imagine, are some of the really big cross-cutting challenges that we face. The characteristic of these challenges is that these are truly global in scope. They respect no national boundaries. They respect no regional boundaries. And the normal kind of a negotiating framework that we have is what? I mean, if I'm a diplomat, I'm told, you go to the conference, you give as little as possible, and you extract as much as you can. I suppose that's the brief that every diplomat goes with. And yet, if you look at these challenges, these kind of negotiations usually will yield only a least common denominator result, because it's the minimum that you can agree upon, because it's such a competitive space. And while what you really need for these kind of challenges is a global collaborative response, and that is what is missing.
Well, if we focus on the opportunities for international collaboration in cyberspace and explore how it offers the chance to really forge global partnerships and indeed security cooperation, what must we do first?
Make it as safe a space as possible. And because the risks are so great. So I think that is perhaps, one may say, a negative way of looking at it, because we should also not forget that the technologies that we are talking about also have a great potential of really transforming our lives, of bringing about prosperity for a much larger number of people. And yet, it is a very, very dangerous space as well, if it is not properly channeled, if it is not properly regulated. I think if you look at our experience over the last so many years, we have usually managed to get to a point where some degree of global regulation has been possible. I think the challenge that we face today is this technology itself is moving so rapidly that we are constantly playing catch up. And that's really the big challenge that we are facing. Let me say that some start has been made. You may have heard of the recently concluded global, summit of the future. I think that's a good start. The fact that we were able to agree upon a global digital compact, again by consensus. So even if you have a very polarized international environment, this indicates that there are some challenges where there is enough awareness of the risk involved for countries to get together despite their differences. So that's a plus point I see. So I do believe that even though the nature of the challenge, the scope of the challenge is much larger than before, I think we do still have a kind of an awareness internationally that we can try and deal with these problems.
Regarding nuclear, in what ways has cyberspace impacted the global security landscape?
So, I think this technology is different from before because of the fact that it has an impact across domains. It is not only limited to cyber. It is something which impacts virtually every possible activity, human activity that you can think of. Second thing is that it is also in the nature of what I call a multiplicator. That is, it enhances, it multiplies the impacts in each and every domain. So if you're looking at nuclear today, I think part of the challenge that we are facing is how nuclear can be, in fact, its impact can be enhanced by the use of cybersecurity. So, cyber and nuclear are, in a sense, getting intertwined. And that is making it much more difficult to deal with the challenge. So I think we have to look at this particular challenge, the cyber challenge, as not only being limited to its particular specific domain, but what it can do with respect to several other domains that we are talking about. And nuclear is particularly, I think, fraught because of the fact that it deals with something that could be turned into a weapon of mass destruction.
Absolutely, it is particularly fraught. But if we really want to help align global cybersecurity standards and enhance overall resilience within the space, what diplomatic tools do you have at your disposal to make that happen?
The diplomatic tools are of a very, very wide range. You can do things bilaterally. So if you have a good relationship, like today, for example, we have a very good partnership with the United States of America. So that is very helpful to us in terms of dealing with some of these technological challenges. You can have, associations of countries, what they sometimes call like-minded countries. So you have the European Union, which usually is a leader in terms of dealing with these kind of technologies and coming up with good regulatory frameworks for these. So that is one way of looking at it. But I would say that these are in the nature of global challenges. Ultimately, you need a global response. And where is that global response going to come from? It can only come at the United Nations.
So what milestones, framework, policy, regulation or agreement would you like to see next, and when do you think it might come?
The speed with which this space is evolving, the technology is advancing, I think makes it very difficult for us to say, this is where I want to be. Because as soon as you say, this is where I want to be, it has already, in fact, been transformed. So I think you should think of this as a kind of a continuous effort where we are always reviewing what we have achieved, look at how challenges in the meantime have expanded, and then deal with it. So the nearest parallel I can find for this is climate change, where you have an international, panel, intergovernmental panel on climate change, which is really groups of scientists from all across the world who gather together periodically to see what the state of the world is as far as the climate is concerned, and are also able to come up with various kinds of recommendations on how we should deal with the challenge.
Ambassador, I want to lastly come to the influence that cybersecurity can have on the long-term growth potential of nations. What would you point to?
So, we talk about leapfrogging. And I think in India itself, we see the impact of leapfrogging. We had very low density of telephones per, maybe 1,000 of the population sometime. We have essentially bypassed the landline stage. It's all now mobile and now moving into smartphones. So that's a very good example of how a new to leapfrog to a very different level. So I think what this does is to give us that kind of an instrument of leapfrogging. And I think the good thing is that this is leapfrogging which can actually help you across the board, precisely because of the reason that it has a cross-domain impact. So today, cyber and I think already artificial intelligence is being used, for example, in agriculture, it is being used in industry, it is being used for the services sector. In India itself, the kind of impact that the digital payment system has made, in terms of inclusivity, I think is a very good example. So the last point I would like to make is that what we need to do also is to deal with the asymmetry of capabilities that we face. That unless we have in place a mechanism, an international mechanism to bring about the spread of information, of knowledge and technologies across the world, and bring people who are at the lowest end of the economic ladder to really be able to utilize this, of course we will not be able to make the progress that we want.
Ambassador, we sadly have to leave our conversation there, but it's been great to talk to you. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Many thanks also to all of our listeners around the world. And if you'd like to hear more conversations like this one, just head to the Rethinking Cyber page on Apple and Spotify. Another podcast episode in this current series is coming very soon, so follow GCF on social media for updates. I also look forward to welcoming you on the ground at the 2025 annual meeting of the Global Cybersecurity Forum in Riyadh. But for now, take care and goodbye.